All right, we're back with another Modified Rods podcast. Today I have Mr. Graphic Disorder himself, Brandt. I ain't even going to try to pronounce that name again. Fuqua?
Fuqua.
Okay. See, we said before we come on, I knew I was going to mess it up. But either way,
it's all good.
You guys know him as Brandt. Like I said, Mr. Graphic Disorder. Runs probably one of the largest design, t-shirt print, just all-out print companies in, I'd say, even out of our automotive industry.
I don't know about that, but it's doing okay. Let's just say it that way.
So you do mostly stuff in our industry, correct?
It's certainly heavy to the automotive side, but we do some church shirts and stuff for the Coast Guard, and just random stuff you wouldn't think would fly through here compared to the stuff we normally do. But yeah, it's very automotive heavy, I'd say.
But you're a bulk,
probably 80+%. Yeah,
gotcha. So I always go back to see what gets people involved in the automotive world. So I know you're currently, in Johnson City, Tennessee. You weren't there your whole life. So where did you grow up and how did you get into custom vehicles? Because you've dabbled quite a bit in the whole industry.
Sure have. So when I was young, I was probably 12, 13. And one of my buddies had a juiced Mazda. And of course, as soon as I saw that, it's the craziest thing ever. You can move a vehicle up and down and all this stuff. Me and my closer friends that were still not of driving age kind of started gravitating towards that group of friends. And, they all had either low vehicles or a lot of them were juiced. This was still previous to airbags being as popular, of course.
Where was this?
This was in Indiana. I'm sorry. Yeah,
okay.
I was born and raised in Indiana, Terre Haute, which was like an hour from Indianapolis. So, I was there till I think I moved when I was 18 or 19 from there. So I was there for, my whole childhood. Anyway, so when we were young, some of our friends had low vehicles and a couple of them had some juice stuff. And we got to be friends with those guys. And so then I my first truck, I had a Toyota pickup, was a 94 standard cab. I lowered it on like 15s, pokey out wheels, looked like every other, it wasn't much done to it really. It was just dropped a little bit, had chain steering wheel, like some, stereo.
But there wasn't a lot of accessible parts back then.
Yeah, nothing was like it was today, where you can get kits for almost everything now. Certainly the popular stuff. So it was garage built stuff. So when we finally juiced that truck, my buddy that I was just talking about a minute ago, he had a juice Mazda, so he juiced my truck, which it wasn't the greatest work ever, and we did what we could, and he did all the work or whatever. I was just there, kind of holding parts and moving things around or whatever. But for the most part, he did all the work, and it was great. We had a blast with that truck. My other buddy juiced his S10 about that same time, so we just had a ton of fun, running up and down. We had a cruise spot back then. This was back when cruising was popular.
Yeah,
it's not that way anymore.
Us old folks remember that.
Yep, I miss that so much. Cruising the strip back in the Indiana was so much fun, and we got to the point where we were kind of famous for coming out on a Friday or Saturday night with a $5 pizza from the local pizza place, and we'd eat pizza and then we'd just play with our hydraulics like crazy, like tear them up. I broke ball joints, I broke leaf springs, I broke the frame in half twice. Like, we had a blast doing that stuff, and of course the truck was a piece of junk as a result, but in the process we had a blast.
I always ask people though, if you had the opportunity to drive that truck on a daily basis now with, say, kids in it, would you do that now?
No.
No one has said yes. Out of all the people I've had on the podcast, no one has said yes.
No, that truck would not be safe to do that with.
So now, was that the truck, the same Toyota that you built after that, or is that?
So that truck, so that was a standard cab 94, and so there used to be World of Wheels. I'm sure they're still there, but back in Indianapolis, there was a big World of Wheels event.
We'll have to ask Eddie Gordy that. He'd be the only one that would know.
Eddie would know. Yeah, I'm sure it's still there. Anyway, so I went to that event one year, and there was an extended cab 93 Toyota. Now it was on like 16s, and it was tucking. So that was like the first. That's like when that first started happening, when people started tucking wheels instead of poking them out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, it was still juice. So that was still a little weird for a truck that was tucking to be on juice, and it had a big stereo in it. I love that truck. I freaked out over that truck. I went 2 years in a row, and that truck was like prominent spot, like nice stereo playing, and just beautiful truck, black truck, just like my truck was. And it was weird how it worked out, but that guy ended up wanting to get rid of that truck. and he sold it to a friend of mine, and my friend wanted my truck. So we swapped. So I ended up with an extended cab truck, and then I got into a club called Beyond Reality, which was, semi-regional-ish, big club, but not Camber, relaxed or
Yeah.
anything like that.
What
But
year
a
was this?
decent. This was like, oh man, that would have been like, I'm trying to think what year that would have been, like roughly 98, around there. Anyway, so I did that, and I got in that club, and then 99 came around, and Tulo Taco had just came out in mini trucking, and I freaked out over that truck. I absolutely love that truck. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it came up for sale on Sport Truck Forum. You remember the Sport Truck
Yep.
chat? They had a forum
Before
there.
Facebook.
Yep, this was before Facebook, and it came up on there, and it wasn't that crazy of a price considering it was essentially a brand new truck. And of course, I had a decent job at that time. This was before graphic disorder. This was all, this was all just regular person with a regular job. And
What
I
was you
went to
doing back then?
I was doing I was building displays in Lowe's stores. So like when a new Lowe's store would get set up, I'd build pretty much whole aisles worth of displays.
Yeah.
And then as stores were opened, I would service those displays. And I did that over a several straight areas. So I was traveling all the time. Decent paying job. I wasn't rich or nothing like that. I was, just getting by type thing,
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck. But anyway, that truck came up for sale and I had to have it. And I called my banker and I was like, this is going to sound stupid, but I want you to loan me more money than this truck's worth. And I need it like now, because there was people trying to get the truck. It wasn't just me. And he's like, well, it looks like it's really nice. I'll give you the money. And I think he was asking 25 grand for it, which, was a touch high or whatever, but not out. I mean, you couldn't build it for that. It's still a truck that had very low miles, and it was not even a year old. So I did it. I flew out to California, and we bought it sight unseen. Basically, he picked us up at the airport in a Geo Metro, drove us to his house, and it was the loudest shit ever. Piece of junk car, and you get, the guy knows you got a check in your pocket that's a cashier's check, wrote out to him. So I don't know if I'm getting robbed. I don't know what's going on. And he took us to his house, and he popped the garage door, and there it was, sitting on carpet. He aired it up and backed it out of the driveway and handed me the keys, and I handed him a check, and we drove off. And that was when I had just moved to Louisiana when I did all that. So I was living with my parents in Louisiana. So I drove the truck all the way back to Louisiana. We did it, and I think we stopped for 4 hours to sleep or something like that. It was 30-something hours of driving.
Those cross-country trips will wear you out for sure.
It was, and I brought my friend with me because I thought, I want to make the trip quick, and I knew I couldn't drive the whole thing, and I never let him in the driver's seat. I drove the whole damn thing, man. I was so excited, man. I couldn't even describe it how happy I was, and I still had my other truck too, so I was doing all right. I had a juice truck and a back truck, and so anyway, it wasn't long after that I met Tito from NC, and I'd met him before that, but we didn't talk a whole lot.
Yeah.
He's a busy guy, so I wasn't one of those guys that kind of like banged my way into conversations. But when I got to Taco, he was more, he was around a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? It was a nicer truck. So I got in Camber then, and that's kind of the history of.
What year did you get in Camber?
98, 99, roughly. I never can remember what exact year it was, but it was one of those years.
So they hadn't been around all that long at that point.
92, I think.
Yeah, so it still wasn't a decade at that point.
Yeah, no, it was still somewhat young club, but not super young. But yeah, so I've been in Camber for a while now, and it's been a great experience. Obviously.
I think that's about the time that when Slam Depressions kind of started going its way, and Wes left and did the Camber thing. I
think he was either right before me or right after me, if I'm not mistaken. We weren't too far apart when he got in Camber.
Well, he had the blue truck my daughter was born in 2000, so it had to have been 2000.
Yeah, that sounds roughly right. Yeah, like a year or two after me.
I remember my ex-wife was, 8 months pregnant or whatever there at Mini Nats with it 112 degrees in Pigeon Forge.
Yep.
We were wrapping his dash in the hotel bed and all that stuff. So
yeah, great times. And when I got the Tulo Taco, I went to Pigeon Forge for my first time that year, and man, that was like I couldn't believe there was a show that cool. Pigeon Forge days. Oh man!
Did you change much on that truck?
Not originally. Originally, it had a small stereo in it. I put a little bigger stereo in it. What did I do right away besides that? I think I did a couple little small interior things. Nothing crazy. I thought the truck was perfect other than stereo. And the stereo wasn't bad. It was more looks than performance. It was like a single 10 or something. And it was in a plexiglass box. So it was a beautiful stereo, but it wasn't enough for me. And of course it was extended cab, so you can't really put people back there anyway. So why wouldn't you just fill it with stereo? So
Yeah.
I put 612s in it, and I actually did a little bit of audio competing with it. I broke a state record with that truck back in the day. So but again, like I wasn't doing much to the truck beyond that. And then I showed it for probably, I don't think it was a full year. I got rear-ended by a semi on the way back from Lake Charles.
Was that what happened to it?
Yep. I was in the right lane, and a semi locked up and in front of us, and I got stopped, and the guy behind me didn't, and he plowed me, dude. Like I was. They literally, I think I probably was going 5 miles an hour, and I think he hit me around 55, 60 mile an hour.
Dang.
Yeah. I'm lucky the truck even made it through it, but I was riding so low that the semi kind of just folded the bed over. Like, so imagine the whole back tailgate, it just folded it like a couch. So it turned into looking like a seat almost.
Yeah.
And it was because the truck was so low. So the semi just kind of crawled over me for a second and shoved me forward. It hit me so hard that I had this was back in the CD days. I had a CD I had stuck. I was trying to load my CD player. I had stuck it in the dash instead of the CD slot because I was looking away while I was driving.
Yeah.
And it went between the head unit and the plastic, right, of the dash. That was laying in my lap.
Wow.
It hit me so hard, it ejected it between the CD player and landed right in my lap. I was like, holy cow. I mean, it hit hard. It was a hard hit. And I was real thankful that I was okay, but I got out and I was like, wow, this truck's actually not that bad. Like, it didn't bend the frame. It didn't hurt nothing on the truck other than the bed. So, and it was a pain in the butt because Tacomas were still new.
Yeah.
And nobody was really wrecking them. So there was only 2 beds in the entire country when we went to fix that truck. And I got one of them. And it was like $5,000.
Did you change much on it then?
Yeah, then we did the whole thing. I went to 20s. This first Mini on bagged on laying body on 20s. So I did the brand new bed on it. We changed
the tires back then was the hard part. People had wheels, but to find the small enough tires.
The tires were pretty big still, and that was the problem. Is it was right on the edge of like what you could get away with back then because the tires were too big. And I couldn't do 20s in the front really without doing a lot of work. So we just did 18s in the front, 20s on the back. And that was up from the 17s that were on it. So we did that. And then we did a whole front, 4Runner front clip, which was kind of a mutt. I did the correct year 4Runner front clip for that model Taco. And then I did the old style chrome 4Runner front bumper and valance. So it was kind of a different look than the truck had before. And we painted it Honda Civic SI blue. So solid color. Because saving the graphics at that point was going to cost more than probably it cost to paint them the first time. And it just I didn't think it made a lot of sense to do that at that point. And I didn't really have the money, to be honest with you. But basically the insurance check I got covered the bed. It didn't cover anything else. So I had to have it rebody dropped, new wheels, new tires, and then a full repaint and fix some of the body work. So, it was a lot more money than I was anticipating, but the truck was so good. I didn't, it had to be done. So.
How long did you hang on to it after that?
I had it for probably, I'd say 2 years probably. So I lived in Louisiana when we did all that, and then I ended up moving to Tennessee. I met Shelly on SSM, and so I moved to Tennessee to be with her. And I sold it shortly after coming to Tennessee.
So you met her on Street Source?
Yep, sure did. Met her on Street Source.
Yep. I didn't even think when I had Chris Bloom on, the fact I was like, I didn't realize that was a dating site, but I guess on top of everything else, it was a dating site.
Yeah, I'm not the only one that did that. There's several people out there that have shared that story. They met their other on SSM, which is crazy, but back then that was how a lot of us spent a lot of our time.
That was before any of the dating apps or Facebook
like,
or anything.
Facebook didn't exist. MySpace didn't even come along until late SSM days. So I mean, it was sort of our social media, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, you couldn't wait to get home to get on to see who was online.
Oh yeah, it was great. Hop in the chat room and seeing who's what was going on, what shows were coming, or whatever's going on. Who's got the top 5 ride? You remember that?
Yeah,
like it was every day. You're like, oh, did I make it? Did I make it?
So, what year did you move to Tennessee?
That would have been 2001, roughly. And
is it close to where you're at now?
It is literally where I'm at now. So I moved here to be with her. She was going to school in Johnson City. And I came here to actually go to school as well. So I came here to be with her, but I went to school while I was here, and it didn't work. I went to be a network administrator, and I didn't put enough time in it. I mean, I got it all, and I could have got my certifications, but I don't know. It just didn't light my soul on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's what I thought I wanted to do, and it probably would have been fine if I just did that, but I decided I just didn't. It wasn't doing it for me. So when we lived in Tennessee, I once that school was over, I decided to take another job in Atlanta, Georgia.
I didn't
Doing the
realize you
same.
moved around that much.
I did. I moved around a lot, and so I took a job in Atlanta that was the same stuff, doing the Lowe's reset stuff, which was a little bit better paying job than it was the first time. But I had a bigger territory, and it was a lot more stores, and it was a bunch of work. But I had a cool boss, and that's sort of how Graphic Disorder got started. Is I was making just enough for me and Shelly to live in Atlanta. Like we were broke, like just
Yeah.
straight up. Like if she was still going to school, and it was taking like, I mean, many times my last, when I'm getting my check, I've got $20 left.
Oh,
So
been there, done that.
it was not fun, man. And we were also living in an apartment that wasn't great. It wasn't very safe.
Not in
And all.
Atlanta. Come on now.
Oh yeah, if you've ever heard of Franklin Road in Atlanta, that's where we lived, and it was we didn't know it at the time because when we went and looked at the apartment, it was daytime and everything looked great. Well, at nighttime, it's essentially people die down there.
You didn't listen to the right rap music back then, is what it was.
No, yeah. In fact, as I would tell people when I was in Atlanta, they're like, "Where do you live?" And I'm like, "Oh, I live, Marietta on Franklin Road." And they're like, "Oh, the Franklin Road?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, people die over their time." I was like, "Well, I know that now, but I didn't know that then." So it was very interesting. Let's put it this way: the night we were moving in, we got there a little late. We're moving in dark. Cops chasing people through our lobby. Like, I mean, that's that's how crazy it was. I mean, it was Shelly got her car broke into there. I mean, it was all interesting, man. Like, and so we started Graphic Disorder out of essentially a necessity of like needed food, like we needed grocery money, like more than anything. So she was cutting decals on a small little plotter we had, and I was doing renderings, and I think we were doing some websites and stuff like that. Nothing crazy. We weren't printing T-shirts or making hats or anything like that yet, but it all started right there in an apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment at the time.
Now, is that what she went to school for?
She kind of was going for gaming, like 3D modeling and whatnot,
Okay.
and she didn't finish, of course, either. But, we got pretty busy doing this stuff pretty quickly. In fact, it took about a month before we made as much money as I was making doing my real job. So it wasn't very long before I realized, well, this is probably the better path, but I need to probably keep the other job for a little while and kind of try to make them both work for a while. So I did that. My boss was real cool. There's reps all over the United States doing that low stuff. So, and they kind of based it on older men. And I was young at the time. I was in my 20s. And, so like they were thinking a 50-year-old guy could do this display setup in maybe 8 hours. Well, that's probably true, but I could go in there and do it too. And he didn't care. He's just like, I'm not going to ask, you don't tell type thing. Right. So like I would go to the Lowe's, I'd leave the house or the apartment at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to a Lowe's store, be in there before they even open the doors. And I'd get my setup done in an hour or 2 or 3 hours or something like that and drive back home and field any work calls while I'm doing Graphic Disorder stuff. And that worked that way for a while and never made anybody too mad, and that was great because we needed that. I needed to be able to have them both go at the same time. So I also did it nights and weekends too, but reality is I was cutting out work early, and that really gave us a launch pad, to kind of get the company going.
What made you come up with the idea of graphic disorder to go, this is what I think I need to do on the side?
Well, like I said, it sort of happened when we were just doing it for the grocery money. And like the very first month, I made almost as much as I made at my real job.
But I mean, how did you know, okay, I'm going to do, these renderings or stickers or whatever?
It just kind of came from like when I was playing with renderings for fun, back in the SSM days. And, somebody would be like, I wonder what my truck looked like with these wheels. And I would just do it real quick, just like send to them. And I was fairly good at it, and it was funny because when I lived in Johnson City the first time, Eric, who's now working for us, does almost all the art here. He taught me, him and Shelly taught me how to use Photoshop. So they taught me how to use Photoshop, and now I'm the boss. It's kind of weird, right? So yeah,
she's the boss still.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But anyway, they both kind of taught me how to use Photoshop, and then I started doing these joke of a rendering. I call them renderings. I was just Photoshopping wheels and car and changing the color of them or something. Not spending much time on it, but people loved it. And next thing you know, it was just I was getting inundated with this, and I was like, I can't do this all night, like I'm tired, and finally somebody said, well, I'll pay you. And I'm like, well, what would you pay me to do this? Oh, I'll give you $50. Well, $50 to me back then was like insane. Like, you're going to pay me $50 and I can sit here in the comfort of my apartment and watch TV and do this? oh, I'm in. Like, let's do it. And so that turned into just renderings out. I mean, there was one year I had a guy helping me, and we did over 500,
That's crazy.
and that's a lot of work. Let me
And
tell you
you don't
something.
even do those anymore, do you?
Oh, we don't even do them anymore.
Well, that's
I
the
wouldn't
thing.
do
It's
them.
like you really don't do them. RJ really don't do them anymore. Robbie, I think, subs out some of them, but he really don't do that many of them anymore.
Yeah.
It's like that. Y'all have all transitioned from that to bigger things.
Yeah. Well, and to me, like the rendering thing, I think what finally did it is, hoping I don't make anybody mad here, but there was some guys building S10s, and notoriously, I did the same rendering, an orange S10 with the same set of wheels, the same front end. I did it like 4 or 5 times for different people. Different truck. I redid them every time, so it was different every time. But it was the same thing, and that's what kind of like it got to the point where it's like people are asking for the same thing, and it feels like I'm taking money when it like
You'd
you
already
just
done
want to tell them like I've already done this. Like the guy a state over from you is going to build the same truck. Like and it got to the point where it's just like I felt like there was no point to it. Like I need to do something else with the time. And so we phased that out. It got to the point where I couldn't tolerate it anymore. Just it was just so that's when we bought an embroidery machine and bought our first small screen print press and got going on that stuff pretty hard.
when you were still in Atlanta.
No, we just moved. We moved out of Atlanta right about that time. Moved to my parents' basement in Pennsylvania. So we went from Atlanta.
Sounds like your parents moved as much as you did.
They did. They did. My dad had a higher end job, and they kind of bounced around a little bit with their location, their headquarter location. So he kind of had to follow. So we were having some crime problems with the apartment in Atlanta. And finally they said, look, we got a 2,500 square foot basement. You guys come up here and do whatever you want with it. And I was like, well, I don't really want to live with my parents in my 20s, but you know what? This is probably another great launch pad to like
Stepping stone.
take us to the next level. And I didn't think it would be as long as it was. We were there for like 7 or maybe 8 years in their basement. But reality was the space was perfect for us. They let us do whatever we want with it. So, I mean, we moved in a screen print press and a embroidery machine and making all this damn noise, and my parents didn't care. Like we just did the same thing. I still was working for another company doing Lowe's stuff, and I was doing graphic disorder just the same way. Like I was gone for 3 or 4 hours a day, and I'd work another 10 plus hours at home and then reset and do it all again, and I did that I probably did the 2 jobs there for a year or so, maybe like that before I said, I can't do this job anymore. I have to focus on GD,
How long after y'all started doing the stickers and renders and stuff did you come up with the name?
Real quick, we did the name probably within a month of starting. We had to bounce around a couple names, but we didn't love any of them, so we stuck to one finally, and I bought the domain name and all that jazz.
How did you come up with graphic disorder?
I can't remember what the name we originally came up with. It was graphic something, and the name was taken. So we did some searching, make sure we didn't want to copy anybody's name,
Yeah.
And then so we did a search for similar names to that second name, and disorder was one of them. And I thought, well, that's unique enough that you're never going to forget it. I mean, is it the best name? Maybe not, but you're never going to forget it. Like, so we went with it, man. We loved it. So that's what, disorder means change, right? So we're doing a lot of changing of people's artwork and whatnot. So we liked it, and we stuck to it.
So during these moves, did was it a Mitsubishi you had next?
After that, let's see, I had the Frontier before that.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
So
right.
I bought the Frontier, and most people don't even know this because I didn't really advertise that too much. I bought that truck bagged. It was just laying frame. And I bought it from Georgia when I was in Pennsylvania. So I'm bouncing around everywhere, so it's from Georgia, and bought it sight unseen. And it was a cluster, man. Like, it wasn't very good work. And so we got the truck, and like the very first time I drove it, like all the grounds for the switches came undone. So we got stranded a little bit, and all these things that happen when you get a new truck that you didn't build. So I kind of got fed up with that. And I was like, well, we need to fix this, and this. So I sent it to my buddy, 3D Customs was the name of his shop at the time. Not my buddy anymore, by the way. But at the time, I sent it down there for a couple things.
That cover hanging on the wall.
Yep. So I sent it to him for, I don't remember what we sent it down there for first, maybe a stock floor and like fix the bags or something. It was minor compared to what it ended up being. And of course, I started making some money while it was there. And if every time he'd say, well, we could do this while we're doing this, it turns into this big snowball. And of course, it got done, and it wasn't the greatest truck ever. Let's just put it that way. But it's fine. It is what it is. The truck had all kinds of flaws with it. It was a 10-footer, man. You got to stay away from it.
Still pulled a cover, and I do believe when I I had Mike Alexander on, I think that was the first cover that they did the half artwork,
Yep.
half truck.
Yep.
Because you did all that, didn't you?
I did not. That was what was funny about that. Is
Nick
Mike hit me? Yeah, Nick did it. Mike hit me up, and he's like, "I need you to do a rendering of your own truck, by tomorrow or something."
That's Mike's deadlines.
And if you know anything about me, I don't mess around. I won't do anything for my personal self if there's customer work that's pending. I just won't do it. This won't get done. So I told him no. I was like, you need to push it a month or whatever you need to do. If you want me to do it, and I'd rather do it, of course. And he's like, well, I could get Nick to do it. I was like, I don't care, do it. He's like, I gotta have it now. It's like, that's fine, whatever, do it.
And Mike's bad with that. He'll be like, hey, can you have this by this afternoon? And I'm like, it's physically impossible. And somehow I always wind up getting it to him by that afternoon or the next day or whatever he needs it.
Yeah, and by that time we were a busy company, so I just couldn't put off anything. It just couldn't happen. And I'm still that way this day. My personal stuff comes way after my company stuff.
Can't remember. You were still in Pennsylvania when I shot that cover, weren't you? Or did you already moved back to Tennessee?
Yes, we were still in Pennsylvania. I had to think about it. Yep. And then while I was there, so you asked where the Mitsu came from. So then I traded Chico, the Frontier, for the Mitsu.
That's right. Okay, I was thinking the Mitsu was before the Frontier.
Nope, Chico was beating on me. I think, where did I first go? And he's like, man, I want this truck. And I didn't really want the Mitsu, even though the Mitsu's so nice. If you've seen that truck, it was such a well built truck. Even though it's stock floor body drop not stock floor, cut floor body drop way farther than it should be. Not a lot of room inside that truck, but the truck itself was so well, like the paint and body work, immaculate. And he was beating on me. He's like, bring your title. And finally, I was just like, all right, dude, if you really want to do this, let's do it. And we did it. And it was perfect because that truck needed exactly what he did to it. It needed a better interior. It needed better paint and body work on it. And he made that truck as clean as it's ever been. So kudos to him for that. I couldn't spend any more money on it. I just could.
He don't have the labor bill behind it when he does it.
Right. Yeah. He gets to do it, for himself. And I know he's got his time in it, but he's not paying somebody to do that,
Where did it wind up?
It bounced around a little bit. It went to Florida to an RA guy for a while, and he had it in his little collection. He wasn't really a truck guy, but he always wanted a truck also. Yeah. So he had that also. And I don't remember if he did anything to it at all, but he ended up selling it overseas, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's somewhere overseas. Chico would know.
It's still crazy, some of these trucks like that wind up overseas that you forget about, and they pop up on these websites or Facebook or whatever, and you're like, crap, I didn't realize that went overseas.
Yeah. And I've always been curious to trust that situation, because it seems like things could go sideways pretty easily.
I had a couple guys try to buy a couple of my builds and like, hey, I want to send this overseas. And I'm like, you're going to wire me money? Is that really legit? It's super sketchy.
Seems super sketchy. Both ends of it. You're firing off money and you don't have anything, and you're receiving money. Is it real money? And then you're putting you're leaving your truck at a port or something that's going to ship. Is it really going there, or is somebody going to steal it right here? I don't know. So I've had a couple times where people talked about stuff like that with some of my vehicles, and I was just declined because I don't want any part in it, because I don't know how it all works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you kept the Mitsubishi you didn't keep it that long, did you?
I'm trying to think. It wasn't super long, year or two probably. Sold it to a local guy, and he's also in our club now. He was in PA. Sold it to him, and then he hit a deer with it pretty quickly. Which was very unfortunate. But he fixed it all, and you could not tell the difference. He did a good job. But it was, it messed it up pretty good. Hit the front fender, cracked it, and all kinds of fun stuff. Which, if you know anything about that truck, that's pretty hard to do, because the front fender was two fenders fused together, so that it had strength. So in case you ever turned the wheel while it was too low, you weren't going to hurt the fender. It was literally fused two fenders together. When the deer hit it, it bent it up pretty good, but it held together pretty good too. So I was impressed, but he did have to fix it. So
what did you, after the Mitsubishi, is that when you got your first Ram?
No, I sold the Mitsubishi. Then we moved down here back to Tennessee, and I didn't have anything custom for a minute.
You're just focusing on work.
Yeah, folks, we were head down, just banging away, and I bought the Titan in 2012, I think. Bought it from Robbie in Indiana. So I seem to keep going back to the estates that I came from, or buying things from those states. Anyway, so he had that for sale. I think it was for sale for like 23, and dude, the graphics were crazy. Like it wasn't my favorite thing in the world, but it had cool stereo in it, and it was cheap enough, and it was a full size. I wanted a full size, so I bought that, and I had it for probably 2 years, also roughly, and sold it and bought my Ram the very next day from a dealer, sight unseen. And I had them deliver it straight to the little shop. So I never even seen. All I did was get on their website. Didn't even see a picture of it. In fact, it was
I
just
remember those stories.
like a stock photo. So I never even saw the actual truck. Stock photo. I called the guy. I was like, "Hey, I want this truck, but the deal is you got to ship it." I think it was like 60 miles to little shop from where this dealer was. I was like, "I'll buy the truck, but you got to trailer it over. I don't want it driven. I want it trailered to little shop." And I said, "Take a picture of the mileage right now, and I want that to be the mileage that he tells me it is when it unloads, because I want it the lowest miles possible, you know." And so he did. It was 27 miles on it when it was at the dealer. 27 miles when Eric got it at the little shop. So it was cool, Like first time I saw that truck, Eric had already bagged it. So I thought that was a neat, you know, it's my build, but like at the same time, I had no association with it other than just talking to a couple emails to him, because we didn't never talk on the phone about it. Like it was very straightforward. Like he's very particular, and to his credit, like he's right. Like there's certain things I wanted 28s, he wouldn't do it. Not having it. He's like, nope, tire's too small. You're gonna hate it. Not doing it. It's not gonna be reliable. You're gonna
Eric's got one of those engineer brains that's
and
just
that's
a different level than most of us.
It's insane, actually. It
Yeah.
actually is insane. I could tell you a couple stories, but anyway, he was very particular. Like it has to be accurate. It had to be on 26s at the max. It had to be certain things. And in fact, even when he said it had to be accurate, said not only that, he wanted to I had to buy a backup brain and a backup valve body. He's like, you have to have all this stuff in the truck if you have a problem. I don't want to hear about it. I want you to have the parts to fix it, and it's going to be done in a way where you could do it on the side of the road. And that's the truth of it. Like I get the truck and there's a packet in the back, instructions if something goes wrong. Like I didn't need any of that, but I appreciated it, because as I sold the truck a couple times, I left that stuff in there, and those people never had to call me to be like, "Hey, where's the valve body? Where's this? Where's that?" It's all there, and it was all built in such a way that like all the airline ran through the frame. Like the only part of the airline that was exposed was just as it come out of the frame and into the bag, like very short distances.
That was one of the first full sizes that he had done, wasn't it? Or is that was before he started doing the dualies?
It was before the dualies. Yes, before the dualies. But I think he might have bagged a Silverado or two or something like that. But yeah, mostly was minis still that I think he'd done most of his work.
What's funny is here, probably 20 minutes down the road, Brevard College. Eric graduated from Brevard College here with a philosophy degree.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, that makes no sense. How do you have a philosophy degree, but yet your mind is an engineer?
He's so particular. It was funny. I'm gonna blow his spot up a little bit here. He put if you remember the build, between the front frame rails, he took an aluminum spun air tank and wanted it to fit between the frame rails just for spacing. He wanted to keep the spare tire in the back, so he didn't want any of the air management in the back of the truck. And I thought that was cool, because nobody does it that way. But then he's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to cut this tank down to fit between the frame rails." At first, I was like, "Okay, whatever," And then I started thinking about it. I was like, "Wait, I've always heard that you're not supposed to have a right angle in a pressure vessel. Like that's just like a general rule of thumb."
Yeah, no.
So if you ever see any kind of pressure vessel, there's no right angles. Like it's always a curved angle of some kind. And I said, "Is there going to be a problem with that?" And he goes, "No, it's going to be fine." So he went ahead and did it, and so it was beautiful. The work was beautiful, and the welds looked amazing. Eventually, it leaked. And so I gave him some shit. I called him up. I was like, "Hey, man, that tank you said that was never going to leak is leaking," And he said, "Bullshit," or whatever, And so we went back and forth. He's like, "Well, I'm going to Pennsylvania for like a ski trip or something. And we're passing through Johnson City." He's like, "I'll just stop. Can you can JD Squared let us borrow a welder?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I'll come down. You have the tank off. We'll go down to JD Squared. We'll weld it real quick. We'll put it back on, and you'll be good to go." And that's what we did. But I took him to JD Squared, and he, like you said a while ago, he's got this mind. It's just like
Yeah.
every weld, every cut, everything in JD. If you know what JD Squared is their tubing manufacturer. So they manufacture machines that build tube benders. They do plasma tables and all kinds of stuff now too. But at the time, it was just mostly tube benders. But everything in that place is laser cut and water jetted and CNC'd. And there's like 30 CNCs down there. So he's just geeking out over everything. So this weld job that was supposed to take 30 minutes was like 6 or 7 hours or something, because we were just looking around at JD Squared all the time. And anyway, so he welded the tank, and where I'm getting to on how particular he is so on one side of the truck, I'm putting the tank up and bolting it in, and on the other side, he's doing the other side. Well, it's got those. You ever seen those exhaust fasteners that have the little rubber clips, and they're like they pinch, and you run
The
a bolt through
B-band.
them? Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but
Yeah.
anyway, but those all have little ears off of them, right? Well, on my side, they don't match. I just put them on however, because I don't give a shit. It's under the truck, right? So he finishes his side, and his little ears are in the same place. Both his two bolts, they're perfect. They're going a 90 degree where they should. And they look amazing, of course. But my side, like they're all kind of wonky. And he looks over there, he goes, "Oh, that ain't gonna do." So he loosens it back up. And, that's the kind of guy he was. He was so particular about the way things were done. And like I said, to his credit, like that truck, it never left me stranded. Never. The truck was just money, dude.
It's crazy that someone like that's not even building vehicles anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he like the last time I was down there was right before I sold the Ram. Basically, I put big brakes on it, and he was wanting he did the install so he could use the pictures for his install kits, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow. I mean, I bought the brakes, but he's like, I'll install them for free if you let me use the truck or whatever. It's like, that's fine, yeah. So I went down there, and like his whole shop was like the dually that he was working on, which was Aaron's at the time, and nothing but Willwood brakes, like everywhere. There's stacks of them taller than you could see.
In the
Like
same shop.
in the same, there was rows of Willwood brakes just everywhere. Like, and he's like, "We're selling a lot of Willwood brake kits." And I was like, "Yeah, no shit." Like, and it was amazing to watch him work. Like him and his buddy there that was working together. Like they both did the opposite side of the truck, but they never spoke.
Wow.
So, and keep in mind, they're cutting off brake lines and the old calipers and deciding where lines are going to be, but they're not speaking. And then on top of that, what was even weirder is like they'd get out a tool, like say they got out a socket to take off the caliper, right? Well, then they put it back up. They'd wipe it down and put it back up, even though the other one's going to need it in like 5 minutes. No, it goes back in the toolbox. I mean, it's insane to watch them work. It was, but I mean, it looked like a lab in there. Like it looked like a hospital, right?
Well, we've had some crazy shoots in there, late nights, early mornings, whatever. So
yeah, he's very particular, and I loved it. I mean, that truck was money, dude. I would have drove that truck anywhere, no question.
now, what made you want to sell that one after it being right?
Oh well, I don't know. I just wanted. I guess I got bored of it, and I didn't want to spend. I kind of, for whatever reason, I reached these points where I don't want to spend more money on a vehicle. Like I feel like, all right, this is the number I'm going to spend on this truck. I don't want to spend any more, whatever. And I'm by the way, I did never build that to be like a show truck. I built that to be a daily driver. I had that built to be a daily driver. I wanted to just cruise. Like I took it to shows or whatever once in a while, but like reality was I just enjoyed driving it. I literally didn't have another vehicle there for a while. I was only driving that. And so I thought I used that truck as much as I was going to want, and I didn't want to put graphics on it, spend $20,000 on paint or something, and so I just felt like I was done with it, and I didn't even list it for sale, and that's when Jeremy's Ram came up that I have now. It came up for sale, and I actually sold the Ram once and bought it back.
Yeah,
we want to get
I
down
remember that.
Yeah, it was black when I sold it, and I got it back black, and then that's when I painted it gray because it kind of went through. My buddy kind of used it pretty hard when he had it there I think he had it for a year and a half, something like that. So anyway, I bought it back and redid it, put the Lamborghini paint on it. So I enjoyed it as much as I thought I could, and then Jeremy's truck came up, and I was like, man, I really like that truck, and it still hasn't been out much, so it's kind of new, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he don't
And so
keep anything longer than a month anyway.
No, and he wasn't really selling it, so I didn't get a discount. Let's just put it that way. I paid for that truck, and I'm not mad or nothing. It was fine. I'm the one that bothered him about it. So I got that, and what was funny is I didn't have my Ram for sale. I bought that truck, overnight the check, and Jeremy Carroll hits me up about mine the same day. I literally didn't post it nowhere. He's like, "Would you sell that truck?" And I was like, Actually, yeah, I would. He goes, well, what's going on? I was like, I can't tell you. You'll see in a couple of days, But I sold him the truck while the other one was on the way to me.
Yeah.
So it's just weird how that worked out. I hadn't planned on selling it, to be honest with you. Wasn't going to sell it.
Where's it at now? I don't think I've seen it since Jeremy sold it.
He sold it to a guy in RA, and then he sold it to somebody else.
It's
And
nowhere
now
near
it's
local anymore, though, is it?
no. Now it's back here. Now a guy in our club has it.
Oh.
Mark Cassidy. You know who Mark Cassidy is?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably. Yeah, Mark Cassidy has it now.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't go to car shows very often. So you're never going to see it. He's got a weird work schedule, so he's always busy. So I've not even seen it, but like once, and since he's had it, and he's had it for probably more than a year. So anyway, it's still out there. He's done a little things to it. I think he did a stereo in it and a couple little things or whatever.
Well, just like you did a few things to the Ram you have now, which.
Yep, I did. I put a full stereo in it, and it's a good one. That's the most I've spent on a stereo in a while. So that's pretty good.
Powdered the wheels and got rid of.
Yeah, powdered the wheels. When I got it, none of the gold. The emblems didn't match the wheels. The wheels didn't match the tailgate. So it was like, and that's nobody's fault. The sun just eats that stuff up differently,
especially in Florida.
Yep, especially in Florida. And I don't think he had that truck in a garage, so I think it lived outside. So that's fine. It's no big deal or whatever. So I did the wheels black and did the emblems all that black, and I put a stereo in it, replaced the compressors. I think I put new bags on it, new tires a couple times.
Wear and tear items.
Yeah, I've just been driving the crap out of it. I love that truck. It's super well built. There's a couple things I told Jimmy. I was like, if you're worried about reliability, there's a couple things you might want to do different. But other than that, the truck is built essentially a little shop level.
Yeah.
Very good work on it. The suspension underneath it is I'm pretty.
Jimmy's insane for sure.
Yeah, if you T-bone somebody, I'm pretty sure everything's still gonna be there. Like it's pretty serious.
But you've got it for sale now, still, right?
Ish. I always say it around mini nats because I have the itch a little bit to do something either new or maybe just buy somebody else's truck. I don't know. It's to that level where the Ram has got enough rock chips on the front bumper that I'm starting to think about, should I paint that? And like when I do, how this goes. When you start one little, like, oh, I'll just paint the bumper black. No, next thing you know, you change the whole color. Next thing you know, graphics.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that I want to do that with this truck. So it's kind of like if somebody wants to buy it, and I'm not losing my butt on it, I would probably let it go. But if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. I paid cash for that truck. It doesn't cost me anything except insurance to sit there.
So why not paint it the color of the Porsche just to tow the Porsche?
that would be an interesting color choice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that was at least the next thing. So you've gotten into, I guess I could say you've gotten away from a lot of the truck world. And we'll get back to the graphic disorder stuff, but you got away from the truck world. Now you're into the performance world.
Yeah. I bought, my dream when I was a kid, I had the F40 poster on the wall. I wanted a Ferrari for as long as I could remember. And so I had the chance to buy one. I bought it used, 458 in, I think it was in 2011. I bought it in 2016, I think it was. And again, it was a used car, so it wasn't like, it had a little bit of miles on it for a Ferrari. It had a lot of miles, actually. It had 7,000 miles, which sounds like nothing. For a Ferrari, that's a lot of miles. So I bought that car in 16, and I had it for, I think it was 9 or 10 months. And my friend said something to me early on, and I was making some good money by then. I wasn't rich. I'm still not super rich or nothing like that, so don't get it twisted. But at that time, he's like, I know you can afford the Ferrari, but can you afford to fix it if it breaks? Because it was a used car. It was no warranty, And I thought to myself, well, how bad could it be? A few grand here and there, or whatever, something breaks. Well, I got my first lesson with that car. I did a donut one day in the parking lot here. And it was an innocent donut, two passes, no big deal. Well, the headlights are the kind that have the turning, most new cars have them now. But back then, that was kind of a new thing. Anyway, Ferrari in their infinite wisdom have the main power running through the circuit board in the headlights. So if you lose the headlight motor, it kills the power of the car. Like it won't do anything. So I whip this donut, car dies. And I'm like, interesting, Start the car, starts up just fine, but it's running off. I don't know it at the time, but it's running off of battery at that point because the alternator is not charging because it goes through the headlights.
That's weird.
So it shorted out the circuit board in the headlight that controls the motor. Whatever. I sent it to the dealer. I'm thinking, okay, this will be the first one that stings a little bit, right? So I send it there. And by the way, you don't drive your Ferraris to a dealership. You have them towed. You have them come get it, right? Because it's too much money to be running around, you know, unprotected, right? So they come and pick it up. They've had it for a couple of days. They charge me like I think it was like $250 an hour to diagnose the problem.
Damn.
So like a day goes by and I'm like, oh God, did I just spend $250 an hour for 8 or 10 hours and they haven't heard out of him yet? And finally he calls. He's like, well, it's a headlight, and we'd never seen that problem before. So he's like, you need a new headlight. I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be expensive. It was $5,500 for the headlight. It was $1,000 for an oil change, and it was something like $3,000 for towing back and forth. So the bill was like $9,900 or something. First time. Like, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And again, maybe it wouldn't happen again, but it made me a little bit nervous, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, you know what? Maybe my buddy was right. Maybe I should get a new Ferrari that has a warranty. So I bought a new Ferrari. So I traded that one in on a brand new 458 or 488, which was 2017 car, but it was still, I think it just turned 2017 when I did this. So I got a brand new car, and
That was
I
the
had
white
it.
one, right?
No, the white one was the first one. The white
Okay.
one was the 458. The red one was the
That's right.
488. And I had it for like a month, and it caught on fire. So I didn't have a lot of good luck with Ferraris. The long story short of that car is that and it wasn't a big fire, by the way. It was in my garage. I was asleep. My car alarm went off. Basically, the main ground of the car shorted out somehow while it was sitting still. I have no idea. It imploded the battery so that you could put your fist inside the battery. There was such a big dent in it. It was really crazy. And it melted some wiring, and it melted the ground, and it caught a little bit of the underside of the glove box on fire. Nothing major. I didn't need to set off my smoke alarm to give you an idea. It wasn't nothing major. But it was enough to make you worry about your car. So anyway, they came and got it and fixed it all, but they had it a damn month. And I get the car back and nothing works right anymore. Like the stereo would work sometimes and it wouldn't work others. The windows would roll down sometimes and not the other. And this is a brand new $350,000 car.
It's not what you want with one of those cars.
So you're thinking, man, I don't know about this, and I kind of let it go for a little bit. And then summer came around, and one of my buddies had just gotten married the week before, and he had never been in a Ferrari. And he's like, man, take me we have the Snake here. I don't know if you know what the Snake is.
Yep.
It's kind of like it's better.
Smaller Dragon.
Well, it's better than the Dragon, if you ask me, but that's because there's nobody on the Snake compared to the Dragon. The Dragon's a tourist trap. Anyway, so I took him to the Snake, and there's a section there, and I come out of one of the corners, and on a straightaway, I hit about 140, and which is normal, totally normal, and I go for the brakes, and there was nothing there, like nothing. It felt just like you were in like an old 70 truck and somebody just cut the brake lines off that thing. And so I start downshifting, hard as I can to get as much speed scrubbed. And I slide through this corner. I had to go in the other lane. So if there had been another car there, I would have hit somebody real bad. But there was no other thing I could have done because there was nothing but guardrail and cliff in front of me. So it's like, pick your poison, right? How do you want to die? And so I get through the corner and get the car slowed down or whatever, and the brake pressure, it came back, but it wasn't right still. And all of a sudden, the car starts making the brakes were making squeaking noises. Now, you've had a car with carbon brakes, so you know what that sounds like, but that's not the sound that I was getting. So when I called the dealer and I'm like, yo, I lost brakes, and now I got a squeak, they're like, oh, that's just normal for carbon brakes. I'm like, buddy, this is like my fourth car with carbon brakes.
Yeah, no.
Like, no, this is not the same noise. This is something different. And it only happens when the car gets a little warm. And so they take the car again, have it another month, can't find anything. Send it back there again, and they finally, Ferrari North America gets involved, which is weird. They don't want it. Ferrari's a terrible company. Let's just say it that way. They don't care. They don't care about their customers. They assume everybody's a billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. So, the car was a lot of money, and it mattered to me, right? And so anyway, they ended up fixing that car. They sanded the brake pads or something. The squeak kind of went away for a little bit, but it came back eventually. Anyway, so once that brake problem happened, I sold the car. I traded it for a McLaren, which was another bag of trouble, but it was a different bag of trouble, so it was fine.
I've always heard that a McLaren, if you have it a year, it's in the shop 6 months.
I didn't have it in the shop but once, I think, and it was minor, but it was always and the car was brutally fast because we tuned it straight pipe exhaust. That car was brutally fast. It was a sub 10-second car, so it was pretty quick for a street car. And it had little electrical gremlins once in a while, like the display wouldn't work, or you'd pull the door and it wouldn't open, and just dumb stuff. I mean, the day I got it, like you might have seen that Facebook post. The day I got it, I opened the passenger door, and it had the going,
Yeah.
the doors that go up, billionaire doors. Everybody calls. So I opened the passenger door for the first time, and the right side of the dash just falls off in the ground. Like I didn't touch it even. Like this is a brand new car with like 40 miles.
That's normal though with a lot of the McLarens.
Yeah. And so I look at the back of it, it's Velcroed.
That's what Tracy said. When you tense them, everything comes apart with Velcro.
And I'm like, Velcro on a $300,000 car? I'm like, okay. And again, it was, it was a car that every time I floored it, I thought maybe this is the time the pistons go flying. You know what I mean? It just did not feel as refined as a Ferrari, right? Even though the Ferrari was trash in different ways, I never worried about the motor on a Ferrari. The Ferrari engine was really well built. But anyway, that car started acting up a little bit, and I traded it for my GT3 RS Porsche. And those cars are bulletproof, man. Anybody says any difference, insane. Like they don't have a clue what they're talking about.
Well, they say that the Porsches like that are the new midlife crisis. It's no longer the Corvettes. All the guys are doing the Porsches now. So you've reached that age.
Yeah, I've reached that age, and the reality of it is for me, it was the dealer experience more than anything. So like if you do anything with a Ferrari, like even like I put custom wheels on my red Ferrari, the dealer was trying to they were trying to tell me that's why I was having problems. And you and I both know that's not the reason.
Yep.
So like, and I took them. I only had them on the car for probably 1,000 miles. So I took them off to prove that the issues were still there. And but they literally said, well, you've modified the car now, so the warranty may not be valid. That's what they said to me. And I was like, excuse me? Like I just bolted some wheels on this car. I didn't do anything to the engine. I didn't put an intake or nothing on this car, And so anyway, and then the opposite experience is when I got my Porsche, the very first time I took it for an oil change. Well, first of all, the oil change was only like $250 instead of $1,000.
Way cheaper.
So that sounds better already, right? And he says to me, the dealer guy, he's like, hey, have you tracked this car yet? And you don't know how to answer that, because you don't want them to void your warranty, right?
Yeah.
Well, I said, no, I'm actually having you change the oil because my track day is in 2 weeks, And he goes, well, you're going to love it. He goes, make sure you just beat the balls off of it because that's what it's built for. And no kidding, man. I put 14,000 miles on that car, and I think most of them were at 9,000 RPM. I'm just being honest with you. Like I beat the nuts off that car all the time, and I do the same with my current one. Like I will never tell somebody that car's been driven soft. It has not at all. And
those RSs are meant to be driven hard.
Yeah, they're literally like you go to a true track day, and I don't mean it, or like the Audi Club, or somebody might rent the track and y'all scoot around for a little bit. I'm talking about you go to a true track day where people beating their cars up. You're going to see basically 3 cars: Porsches, some Corvettes because they're easy and cheap to fix, and you're going to see some BMWs. You're not going to see anything else. You're not going to see any damn Lambos. You're not going to see any Audis. You're not going to see much of anything else. Like it's literally, maybe a Miata. You might see a Miata or two. But everybody else is running Porsches and Corvettes. And most of the time, the Corvette guys are a little bit lower income guys, and they can fix them at AutoZone, realistically. Like for some of it, now, of course, you can't do that with Porsche. They just last, dude. They don't have nothing.
Now, you say you want to sell if the Ram goes for sale, are you going to stick with the car world and do something that, or you want another truck?
Yeah, I'll do another truck. I may not do it right that second. I'm not even sure yet what I would do. But I've bounced around a couple of ideas. But I'll always have a truck. There might be small gaps, but I'll always have a truck.
So the one juice truck back in high school now led to now you're playing with this. So you never lost the love for the custom vehicles.
No, I never lost it. You can really blame the supercars on the truck too, because that just led me to it. It wasn't just a custom truck thing; it was vehicles in general. Like I've loved it all. I wish Ferraris would have been better to me, but I'm fine with where I'm at on the Porsches, and I'll probably always have a back truck. Just something about it feels right. When I don't have one, I don't feel right.
Well, it's like I'm the same way. If it's got engine and wheels, regardless, like to me, that's still. That passion is what drives me. It's like when I had my wagon, that was probably the favorite, like non-full custom car I've ever had. But it's like, okay, that was a bucket list for me. It's like, I've always wanted the wagon. When it came, I'm like, cool, I had it done, had it for a year. but
Yep.
it's like I enjoyed that as much as I did the truck world or the import world or whatever.
Absolutely. And it's a different scene. You get to meet a different group of friends that aren't, into trucks. So you got different stories and different friendships you get to build.
You have
And,
less
and
Dickies and black T-shirts in that scene though.
yeah, I look a little weird. Let's just put it that way compared to some of those guys.
It's
I
usually
don't.
khakis and a polo and
Yeah, we went to a track day about a month ago, and these guys pulling up with cars. Porsche car is all Porsche event. So we were in a track there in Tennessee, and some of these guys they got scarves on, and Rolexes and all this crap, and I just I got an Apple Watch and some Dickies,
we're not
and
going
I'm
to see
driving.
you with a graphic disorder scarf and
Yeah, and I'm out driving all those guys. Like, I'm faster than every one of them. In fact, I shouldn't be, because some of the cars are better than mine. But it was hilarious because they're about looks and I'm about going fast.
so we need to see a graphic disorder scarf come soon. So
I think I'll pass, but there was some of them there. It was
throwing
funny.
ideas, it could be a money maker there.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So back to the whole graphic disorder thing. So during the time when you're playing with all these different trucks and cars and stuff, you're still doing the graphic disorder stuff. So when did you know, okay, this is blown up beyond what I thought it'd be. Now's time to go balls to the wall and do everything we can. What was that moment for you?
I think it was. We knew it sooner than we reacted to it, and I'm guilty of being conservative in that way. I'm big on not messing with other people's money. You know what I mean? So, like, when I got to the point where I knew I needed help, I had to be sure. You know what I mean? My first hire was Eric, and I didn't want to bring him out of he was in a career. I didn't want to bring him out of a career into something that was just going to last 6 months or something. You know what I mean?
When
So
you feel
I,
guilty.
yeah, then it's not only is it a person that I kind of mess with their life, but he's also my friend. He's my best friend. So I didn't want to disrupt him in any way. And to his credit, he didn't. The first couple times I asked, he wasn't having it because he was nervous too.
What did he do before?
He worked at a printing company. They printed like flyers and posters, and
Was he doing graphic stuff there?
he was doing some of their layout stuff, like pre-press stuff. He does some of the graphics there, but most of the time he's just like pre-press.
Not like he does now.
No, not like he does now. Yeah. And so, it got to the point where it was obvious to me that I think me and Shelly had taken the company as far as two people could take one. Like, we were just 16 hours a day most times, like usually 7 days a week. And there's just no more time. Like,
And at that time, what all products were you doing? Renderings, T-shirts? What was your?
I stopped renderings already at that point. We had a small 6-color manual press, and we had 3 heads or 7 heads of embroidery, I think, maybe at the time. And that was just as much. So I was doing the artwork, doing all the ordering, or all the sales. And then I was doing all the embroidery and also helping her in screen print. And she was doing all the screen printing and all the garment ordering and stuff like that. And it was too much, man. It was just.
Were you still in Pennsylvania at the time, or you already moved back?
No, we already moved down here, got our building, rented our building.
Same one you're in now?
Yep, we rented it originally, and we own it now, of course. But when we first came down here looking for property, this one wasn't even listed on the websites or whatever, and we kind of saw it off the side of the road, like a for sale or for lease sign or whatever it was, and so we ended up calling up the guy and rented it around the spot. It was perfect. Way too low. We were been looking at Pennsylvania, but everything was so expensive in Pennsylvania that I knew it was going to slow us down if I did any of that, So I basically came down here because I remembered how cheap everything was to like buy and sell down here. Everything was just cheaper, So I came down here with that in mind and found this place and rented it, and it worked out perfect. And again, like, we worked that for I probably had this building for a year with just me and Shelly. 14,000 square feet with 2 people in it. So it was way too big. All my friends thought I was insane, including Eric. When he first came here, he was like, "Oh man, that's a big building for what you got going on here." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm hoping to need all this space eventually." And turns out we did, but it didn't seem like that was going to be the case. But it did, and so we hired him probably about a year after getting this place rented. And again, I told
him in to do the artwork stuff? Or?
Yep, brought him in to do art. He was actually helping with screen print as well. So I was still doing all the embroidery and doing some of the artwork and some of the more basic stuff. And I'd farm him all the harder stuff, which made he's a much better artist than I am, no question about it. And so he elevated our artwork game, of course. And that, we exploded, man. But the 3 of us were unstoppable, like in the beginning. You couldn't outwork us.
So when did you know this is it?
Then, I mean, really, when I hired my first employee, I mean, I knew I could always make it work with just me and Shelly, but when I hired my first employee, it felt very like concrete at that point. Like, hey, you got something that works. It's scaling extremely. We were growing most years 50 to 75% a year.
Wow.
And it's, I mean,
With three
if you
people.
know, and if you, it was two for a minute, but yes, it ended up being three of us, and we were seeing that kind of growth. And I don't think people realize most companies don't grow that kind of volume repeatedly. Like they do, they might have a year or something where they off the scale, but we were like that every year. Now, of course, it's slowed down a little bit. We've gotten to, harder to bust that ceiling now. We're not seeing those kinds of numbers every year now, but we're still growing. So,
what year did you make the jump to go to the more embroidery? I remember when you first bought your first press, your first big one.
Yep, I did that. So I bought the first one in 2011 or 2012. Has it been
that long ago?
That was right before we hired Eric. We bought our first auto. And that was, I mean, again, a lot of shops would call it a big press. That's a toy compared to what we have now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an 8-color 10 station. So you don't know much about screen printing probably, but on an 8-color, you can probably get away with 5 or 6 colors if you're lucky. You got heads that get ate up with flashes and cool down stations and other things. So it's still, I mean, it was a big enough press to get by, but it wasn't big enough. You know what I mean? And right away we knew that. So we ran away. Eric would be designing something that we literally were going to struggle to print. And eventually that got to the point where, hey, we need to do something about this and get a bigger press. And we did that in like 2014.
How big?
We were already
now.
Well, we bought in 2014. We bought a 12-color 14 station, and then in 2018 we bought a 18-color 20 station. And those presses are, I mean, the 18-color 20 station, you're not going to find too many shops with that big of a press. It's pretty rare.
So what has been or I should say, who has been your largest repeat customer year over year?
I mean, it bounces around. Every year is a little bit different. I mean, before the EPA got wild, the diesel customers were our biggest customers by far. Rudy's Diesel, PPEI, SDP, some others I can't name, but we were doing a lot of diesel work, like a whole lot of diesel work, stuff we don't even show sometimes. So that was a big chunk of our business early, and then Ken Diggett got to be a real big customer. We've got some other people that are designers that we print for that people don't know we do that, and they're big customers too. So we don't tell everybody.
You all can get shirts?
We do everything, but they're basic shirts. They have some basic shirts. They got a local screen printer does those, but we do all their graphic shirts. Like if it's got any kind of graphic design on it, really, that's not just their logo or something.
Yeah. And you've become the go-to for most of these shows and stuff, because most show artwork, shirt artwork, and all that, you can look at it and say, "Yep, that's a graphic disorder work right there."
Yeah, and we've had great success with it, and I think the shows have too. I mean, a lot of these shows, they were doing it with somebody else before, and they were doing a fraction of what they're doing now. Like so, and I'm not tooting our horn, but I think we do a good thing. I think we do good artwork and we do good printing. So I think it helps these shows.
Well, I know the podcast shirts I've had. I had done with you. I wash the damn it out of them because I wear them all the time, and no issues out of them. So
I mean, we have all professional equipment here. We're not playing around with some basic hobbyist stuff. We're not manual printing like some of these guys, and I'm not putting those people down or nothing. But
there's a place for everything in that industry, just like any industry.
Yep. And those are not big investments to do those things. So, when I'm putting this kind of money in, I'm serious about doing it. And I'm not scared to put, I mean, we've got small equipment in here that you could buy whole screen print shops with the cost of them, so, we spend money. We're not scared to do that. I mean,
but you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah. We got our screen cleaning machine is $90,000 and that's a job somebody could do for free. Like you don't even need the equipment. So it just tells you the kind of money we've spent on stuff.
But then you would be hiring somebody else to do.
Yep. Yeah, you'd be spending more on labor. Yep, for sure.
How many employees do you have now?
14 currently. Lost one recently. We had 15, but we're down to 14.
Is that including you and Shelly?
Yes, that's all total. Yeah, total. Yep.
So it's not a big, massive,
No, we're not like a massive conglomerate or nothing like that, but we're a healthy small business, I'd say.
Where do you see the future of graphic disorder going? What is your goal with it?
Well, I'd like to probably, I mean, as far as physical machinery, I'll probably want to double or triple in size. So building and everything will probably double to triple in size.
Now, will that
Uh,
just cut down on lead times for the people? Or what?
yeah, it allows us to do some things we can't really do right now because we're too busy doing the day to day. I think with a little bit more equipment, more space, we can do some things that maybe people wouldn't think we'd do. So we'll explore that as we go. Right now, it's like the economy's kind of like this every day. We're having big days, and then we'll have small days and big days, small days. We're still growing or whatever, but I don't think I want to build a building today the way the economy is. So I'm going to wait
No.
and see how things kind of pan out. But once that thing settles down, you're going to see some changes around here that are going to be very positive for the future for us. We're not going anywhere.
You see yourself staying in the Johnson City area? I guess you.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah, unless something crazy happened in the area, I don't see us ever moving.
Unless we
Again,
start getting yearly hurricanes or something.
yeah, that I'm not into that. But the property here, I mean, like I bought this building for 330 grand. It's 14,000 square feet. It's probably worth $1 million something now.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't you can't buy property like that now. You
no,
can't buy a house for that.
yeah, and it was crazy because we were renting it, and the guy that owned it wasn't paying his taxes. We had a constable coming like harassing us about the owner. I'd never met him and all this stuff. So the long story short is the bank called one day. He's like, "Hey, we'll do a 0 down loan just to get this other guy off the loan, and like you buy the place, and we can all be happy." I'm like, "Fine, let's do it."
Sold.
So I put no money down on this building. I walked away from closing with money because I had a tenant at the time in the back, so they had just wrote check to the other guy, so he just passed it to me. So I left closing with money, which is weird, and it ended up like the payment on the building was $200 a month after I collected the rent. So it actually saved me money. I eventually kicked those guys out, but for a while there, this building was costing me $200 a month. So plus the yearly property taxes,
Yeah.
But realistically, it was $200 a month. So why not, right? So I don't know, that I felt like that was a good move at the time, but that kind of fell in our lap. If that hadn't happened, I might still be renting. I don't know, because buildings are hard to find around here.
Yep, because if it's anything new, if it's like here, if it's anything new, they're gonna want stupid money for it. If it's anywhere on the main path, they want stupid money for it.
Well, they're not even building them really either. It seems like all the construction crews are busy doing apartments. Like there's apartments going up everywhere.
They are the same way we are here. They're building apartment complexes beside apartment complexes.
Absolutely. They're doing it right by my house. There's an apartment complex. They're just now putting another one right next to it that's just as big, if not bigger. And it's just, I'm like, where are the houses? Where are the buildings? Like, it's just all apartments. Like that's what they're busy doing.
It's what my daughter does down in Charlotte. She's a leasing agent, and the one she just moved to, it's brand new. They got 3 buildings. One of them's about mostly done. The other 2 they're still working on. But then she's moving to the next one in like 8 months to be assistant property manager. And I'm like, are they building that many of them? She said, yeah, it's all the same company.
It's so crazy, man. Like just cranking them out left and right.
Yep. Well, it like I said, I've known you for, gosh, I guess 20 plus years at this point.
Yeah.
Throughout the teens.
Something like that. Yep.
You've done a ton of shirts for me over the years, for shows and my own stuff and all that mess. So you definitely turn out a killer product for the stuff you do. Like I said, you seem to have the automotive industry on lock for the most part.
We try, and we do it in the most weird ways. We don't take phone calls. We don't take walk-ins. We're not going to meet with you. Like
I'm shocked I even got you on a podcast. Like how did
that? Yeah, I don't mind to do this stuff, but I don't want to talk on the phone about money and like your order and stuff like that because I'm just going to forget it. I'm just an ignorant, redneck from Indiana. Like I'm not. I don't have the brain power to. I do about 150 emails a day. I can't leave it up here. It'll be a nightmare. So I keep it to email, which some people love and some people don't.
Yeah, I get it though, because some people's probably like, "Hey, I want to talk to this guy if I'm going to spend these thousands of dollars to make this work." But you're not going to call, Porsche North America and talk to the guy that runs it.
No, you're crazy if you think you can do that. And it's funny because the big customers are usually the ones that don't need to talk to you. It's the one that wants to spend $100. Oh, I need to call you on the phone to make sure you're a real person and all these things. I'm like, no offense, man, but like that's not happening. Like.
I know you've seen the meme, and I run into it all the time with either photos or detail. And you got the one customer that's like, "Man, can you cut a deal?" And you got the next person that's a big job, and they're like, "Oh, I've already paid you."
Yep, bang. Yeah. As soon as you send the payment link, it's like, boom, oh, paid. Dang. Okay. Nice. Yeah. And we see that all the time. We'll send an invoice for 60, 70 grand to somebody. It's paid within a couple minutes. And you send somebody a, $500 invoice for something that don't matter to nothing to nobody, including them.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh man, but what happens if this and all these things? And I'm just like, ooh, okay. Like, all right, whatever.
So how do people find your company and what you do?
My website, graphicdisorder.com, or all social is at graphic disorder, on Facebook, Instagram. I think that's about it. I don't do too much other social.
I always ask everybody, you don't have the TikTok where you do dances?
I have a TikTok, but I don't ever use it really. I have a YouTube channel that I also don't ever use.
I forget about mine half the time, other than the podcast one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just not good on camera. I don't know. It's weird for me to do this kind of stuff.
So then that cuts out OnlyFans then.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do any OnlyFans. I'll do that I'll do the reverse one where I send a picture, and if you want me to stop, you have to pay me.
That's gonna be the new wave. I can see myself doing that as well. So
that's when us kings are gonna shine, buddy.
I'm gonna start wearing my hoochie daddy shorts in the driveway. Like y'all gonna have to pay for me to get a bigger garage, or you're gonna keep seeing this every day.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you this every single day, or you're gonna send me $100 a month.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you're always
No problem.
swamped every time I talk to you. So appreciate you coming on and telling people the story of graphic disorder.
No problem. Enjoyed it.
All right, man.
Thanks, Brandon.